Okay, everybody, welcome to Copcast, the voice of the Fairport Police. Here it's April, nice day in April here in Fairport, New York, on the east side of Rochester, doing our third episode of Copcast. With me to my left is Sergeant Matt Weber. He also works for the Fairport Police. He'll introduce himself in a second. And our most prestigious guest to date, and we have Jack Foy with us. Jack, welcome this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
So as we do these podcasts, we try to put together interesting talent, we'll call you, Jack. And, we try to cover a bunch of different areas. And one of the areas I always want to do is you're a member of the greatest generation. And we thank you for that. And
Thank you.
And your efforts and your service is, and I don't say that lightly. I have chills when I say that to you. I can't thank you enough. I mean that for the life you've given me and everyone in America. And I know it's been, a few decades now since World War II, but we have not forgotten the sacrifices you gave for this country. And we'll get into some of the stories. I really appreciate you taking this time on this Thursday morning to coming out and speaking with us too, Jack. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
So Bill Moran, the Billified podcast. Again, Bill, thank you very much for hosting our Copcast. Without you, we cannot do this. So we very much appreciate that too. So we'll get into it. Sergeant Weber, off to my left, you can introduce yourself.
Matt Weber, been at Fairport Police for 7 years, and I'm in the Sergeant on Midnights over here.
And Jack, if you want to just introduce yourself and speak into the mic, because we want to be able to hear every single word you say today, Jack.
Okay. My name is Jack Foy. I'm an old veteran of World War II, pushing 100 years old now. I live down Schlott, Greece area. Lived there all my life. I fought in General Patton's Third Army across France, Germany, Belgium, all that during World War II. And I've been very active in the Veterans Affairs here in the city since, back in the 1980s or so, I guess.
So I see you got your CIB up on your hat, Jack. And for those listeners that don't know what the CIB is, it's a Combat Infantryman's Badge, and you get that when you serve in combat. And it's an award to hold near and dear to your heart, and amongst other awards that you have in and on your head, and in your book that you just handed me. And you handed me a book when you first came in, and it's called Poppy's Story, Memories of World War II in Old Charlotte. And that's another thing we're going to get into too. We're going to talk a little bit about the war, but also about Rochester. You've been in and around Rochester. Now, when do you turn 100, Jack?
I'll be 99 in this October.
99.
So I got another year and a half or so.
Year and a half.
I'll be 100.
So you'll be 99 this October. So you've seen the good and bad of Rochester. You've seen it when it was nothing, when it boomed, and now when it's plateaued out as it is right now.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate. I come from a very large family. There were 10 children in my family. My father was a plumbing contractor in Schlott and Greece area. But the thing is, back then, I'm talking about 1925, 1924, when I was born, large families like that weren't very unusual any place in the city. Because quite frankly, you used to lose a lot of the kids to all the crazy diseases and stuff that were floating around. But lucky my family, we all survived finally. But we had, had 9 brothers and sisters.
How many girls, how many boys in your family, Jack?
4 girls and 6 boys.
4 girls and 6 boys.
Yeah.
Boy, there were some fights in that household, wasn't there?
Yeah, it worked out pretty good.
Did it? I'm sure if you interviewed your parents at one time, they didn't think so.
Yeah. We were very, very fortunate. My father, it was back in Depression times, too, in the middle of the Depression. We're coming up through, so.
Hard times.
It got kind of rough at times.
Yeah.
Although we seem to be doing better than a lot of families, because my mother would pack up baskets of all different kinds of groceries, canned goods and stuff like that, and I'd go run around the neighborhoods. She'd give me a bunch of addresses, and I'd drop them on the porch of the house and ring the doorbell and run like hell, because we knew that those people were really having it rough.
Wow.
They didn't have all the aid for poor people that they do today.
Even in the toughest times this country has to offer, you guys gave.
Yeah.
That says something about your mom and your family.
Yeah, that was it.
So just so you know, I'm one of 10 kids also.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's 7 girls and 3 boys in our family.
Oh, that's unusual.
Yeah, it is unusual. Yeah, I guess you could say our family's unusual, Jack.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So, I obviously Rochester is near and dear to your heart. I heard on one of your interviews that I always do a little research before I ask a guest to come on. One of the interviews I came across, you talked about living a mile from where you live right now in Rochester, and you mentioned earlier that you were a plumbing contractor, and your father was a plumbing contractor.
Right, yeah.
How many years did you do that for?
Oh, gosh, I started out with my father, and I was going to go back to college. I went to a year at Cornell University. The Army sent me. And I was going to go back to college, but at that time, when I got out of the Army, that was in 1945, 46, 45, I think. And I was going to have to wait for 4 or 5 months to get back into Cornell again, to start my classes there. But I started working with my father in the plumbing contracting business. And after 4 or 5 months of that, I decided I like that better than working with my hands and that, rather than going back to Cornell and sitting behind a desk. And I was dealing with people all the day. We did mostly a repair type business. And so we're dealing with people all day long. So I liked that. And that's what I did. And eventually, after several years, I took the business over.
So I heard something just this past week, and it's ironic that we're sitting here talking today, and obviously the plumbing background I knew from my research on you, but the statement was that plumbing, electricity, and water separate us from a third world nation. If we didn't have those three, we'd be a third world nation. Yeah. And I thought about it for a minute, and I'm like, gosh, there's some truth to that, and it was interesting to me because, the plumbers and the electricians and the tradespeople now in life that are becoming fewer and fewer are so very important to the way we live every day. So it's ironic that you speak about that. It's a very, very important job.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Yeah.
And it paid pretty good, too.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. I've hired a couple of them, so I know they're not cheap. So I'm sure you've earned it also.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So you grew up in Rochester, New York. You touched on a little bit. I think you went off to Cornell, for engineering or
engineering.
Somewhere. That's what I thought I remember. And then this thing called World War II comes up, right?
Yeah, it sure did. It sure did.
And every able-bodied American partook in that war.
There's almost 100% participation where the young people get, because it's the day after Pearl Harbor. You couldn't get any place near a recruiting office. There's 500 guys in front of each one of them waiting there to sign up.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Isn't that something? Where were you during Pearl Harbor? Do you remember where you were?
I was at home. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was at a friend's house, Bud Keenan, down the street. We always traveled together. And at that time I was only 14 years old, I guess. And we were trying to decide whether we should go to the Lake Theater on a Sunday afternoon. It was pretty expensive. It cost us 10 cents a piece at that time. And he had the radio on in his father's car. And Pearl Harbor was just attacked. We didn't know much about Pearl Harbor, but we soon found out. And that was our invitation to World War II.
It's probably I guess the only thing my generation or our generation has to compare it to is probably 9/11.
Pretty
right?
close.
And I remember I questioned whether our generation would step up, and it did, right, in 2001, and they stepped up greatly. And I was pretty impressed because I don't think a lot of us in this country thought we could stomach something like that, and we did, right? We fought 2 wars, 2 different theaters, and I think we did pretty well. But I can't even imagine being a 14-year-old kid, having Pearl Harbor attacked, and like you said, what's going to be of my future for the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, we want to go right down and sign up and get in the Army or the Navy or whatever.
So you joined the greatest branch, the Army, right?
Yeah, right.
The best?
Yeah, I was kind of a smart kid in high school, and they sent me to, instead of going in the regular Army, they sent me to Cornell University, which they did with hundreds of guys. Supposed to go for 2 years and get a commission in the Army and get a degree in engineering and get into the Army engineers. But I went to Cornell for 5 months or so, I guess it must have been. And I think North Africa was just happening. They're taking heavy casualties. And they needed guys with a rifle more than they needed engineers. And they pulled us all out and sent us into regular infantry companies. And they had the smartest damn infantry companies. To get into this, the college course, you had to have an IQ of 120, I forget what the number was. Right up at the top anyway.
Really?
To get into the thing. We all ended up in the infantry.
Doesn't sound too smart to me, Jack.
No, it wasn't at the time. We didn't think it was, but that's the way it had to go.
Did you go down to Fort Benning or at that time?
Yes, yeah,
Fort
I
Benning.
took basic at Fort Benning.
Okay.
Down in Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, I think I had a guest on here a couple of weeks ago, but we've chewed some of the same dirt. I've been to Benning and then to Bragg, but at Benning I did training too. So
Yeah, we were way back in Turk Hill, I think they called it, on Fort Benning.
Sand Hill.
Sand Hill, maybe that was
Is it Sand Hill? It's still there.
It might have been.
Yeah, they haven't done much with it.
Yeah.
So after your training, where was your first duty station, or where'd they ship you to?
They
then?
shipped us right up to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, to the 87th Infantry Division, which was part of General Patton's Third Army. We went through training there for a few months, down up to New York City aboard the Queen Mary, across to England.
What were you thinking?
15,000 men aboard the Queen Mary.
What were you thinking when you're on that ship heading east?
Quite frankly, we were a bunch of young kids. We were all gung-ho, let me at them, you know. And, well, they did that. They let us at them. We landed in England, stayed in England for a few weeks, got ready and across the channel, landed in the Normandy beach, which, of course, this was about 4 months or so after D-Day. So had a good landing, and they do this to fight our way in there. We aboard the old French trains on up to, we went into action near Reims in France, the Saar Valley. That was where we first went into action. Then we were there for about a month when the Battle of the Bulge started. That was the most horrible experience of my life, the Bulge area. In my company, there was about 200 men. We lost maybe 10 guys down the Saar Valley. We got to up in Belgium by, I think on Christmas Day, I believe, we landed there, or we got there. Traveled up there in jeeps and trucks and everything, the Patton's Third Army. We went into action with 200 men or so in our company. After a month, we came out of there with, I think there's 14 guys left of the original company.
My God, Jack.
Took a terrible beating there, but we beat them. We were just outside of Bastogne most of the time. Terrible battles. The Germans were tough.
Did you ever meet Patton?
I met him once, of all things. We were just getting ready to jump off an attack. We were alongside of a road just outside of Bastogne someplace. And the company was lining up along the edge of the road. And all of a sudden, this Jeep comes flying up with 3 stars flying on a flag on the side of it. It was Patton himself. And he jumps up on the hood of the Jeep, and he's screaming at us, "Kill the sons of bitches, kill the sons of bitches." And he jumps back in his Jeep and takes off, probably to give the same message to the next company down the line.
Well, that almost fits the persona I'd believe Patton to be.
Yeah,
You know?
he was quite a guy, quite a guy.
And Jack, as we travel along, if there's something you don't want to talk about, I respect that, and just we'll move along. And if there's something you do want to touch on,
No, fine.
you talk with whatever you want.
Okay.
You have an open mic today, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So after you saw your leader, your commander-in-chief at that particular moment in time, come up on a Jeep and yell those things, how did that make you feel as a lowly infantryman or a lowly rifleman?
We thought it was a damn good idea.
Yeah.
So that's what we proceeded to do.
Before we taped, you were telling myself and Sergeant Weber about an incident the first time you had a close quarters battle or engagement with the enemy. Do you mind touching on that?
This happened about the second or third day I was in combat in the Czar Valley. And we were just going through a woods, and all of a sudden this German soldier popped out from behind a shed. The first German soldier I ever saw. And he saw me at the same time I saw him, I guess. And he started to bring his rifle up. I brought my rifle up a little bit faster, I guess, and I put 2 rounds right into him. And he went down, and we kept going. And I walked by him. He was laying in. So he's a young kid, probably 20 years old or so. And it's something I never forgot. I always felt bad about it. I shot a guy. I killed a man. But it was something we had to do. And the heck of it is, I did it many times after that. I was a machine gunner most of the time in a rifle company, and that was our job. That's what we did.
I don't mean to touch on, I guess the dark areas, but that is war, and I can't even imagine what you felt at that particular point. And, we call you guys the greatest generation for a reason. I'll say thank you to you when you're wearing your hat, or we know you served or something like that, but that's the reason people say thank you, is because we know you've never forgotten that particular moment in time.
It's hard. Sometimes, you're just sitting in your easy chair at home and memories come flooding back.
I'm sure they do.
And you say, how the hell could I have done such a thing?
Because you had to.
I did. I was involved in hand-to-hand combat. Sometimes you get right into the German lines and you're fighting them with a dagger. I've done that.
Jack, you also told a story, and if you don't want to speak about it, we'll move on. We have a whole book and plenty of stuff. And if you knew me better, I'm pretty good at running my mouth, so we got plenty of content, all right? So you talked about you liberated a town, I believe you said in Belgium. And after you guys liberated the town, you left the town. The Germans came back in. Can you touch on that if you know what story I'm talking about?
There's a little town just outside of Bastogne, Calais, Belgium. We finally fought our way into the town. And the Germans came back with a much heavier force and pushed us back out. And we heard that after they did that, they pushed us back. They rounded up the people of the town, and they tried to find out who were the lousy people here who helped the Americans. And in almost any place you go, there's always somebody that's you might say a jerk. But anyway, they took, I think, about 12, 16 people that figured to help the Americans and lined them up against the wall and mowed them down. No mercy at all. But we took the town back a day or two later. And we heard about that, and we did almost the same thing as the Germans recaptured. It's war.
Absolutely.
You do a lot of things. You look back, how the hell could I ever have done such a thing? But we did.
Jack, there was another incident that you spoke of. I think it was a concentration camp that you guys may have liberated.
God.
If you don't want to speak of it, we'll move on.
The biggest concentration camp in Germany, I think it was. We were going down a road. This is right about in the middle of Germany someplace. And God, there's a terrible stink coming up. We kept going down the road and go around the corner, and there's a huge camp it was Buchenwald concentration camp. It had a big barbed wire fence all around it, and there were thousands of people in there. We captured about maybe 20 German SS troopers on the road. They were the guards from the camp. They were running away because they knew we were coming. And so we took them with us and got to the camp, and they had a tank drive right to the main gate of the camp. And it was just such a disgusting thing. Dead bodies laying all over the place. The ovens going, burning the bodies. They were in that camp. They would take all the people and put them downstairs in a big room and tell them they're going to take a shower. That's the story they gave them, was they're going to take a shower, and they had big shower heads in the ceiling of the room and all. And they would turn the water on a little bit for the guys to shower, but then the water would stop and the gas would start coming out. That's the way they killed them, with gas in those rooms. And they had an elevator, of all things, right on the side. They'd throw all the bodies into the elevator, take them up, and stick them in the oven. So,
and it's absolutely horrifying that it is to sit here and listen to you tell that story. That's what those people were doing to other human beings.
Yeah.
And whoever the listener is on this Copcast, if you're listening, and I apologize for the content, but that is the reason that we went there. That's the reason. One of the reasons we fought World War II was there was people like that in the world willing to do that to other human beings.
And it was rather difficult for us to show any mercy to the German soldiers.
What did you do with them that day, Jack? I think you and I.
Well, they would. If we captured a guy, we were mostly reasonable about taking care of him. Didn't once in a while a guy would give us a hard time, and he might get shot. But usually we were fairly decent to the prisoners we took. But before we took the prisoners, we weren't very decent to them.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I can say one of the things, I went to Germany, I don't know, probably 15 years ago, and I ended up going to Dachau, one of the concentration camps.
Yeah, down south.
Yeah, I think it was by Munich or something like that, and it was eerie walking through it, and just seeing everything was just almost frightening, and that's 100 years later or 80 years later, and it was just nuts. And I remember hearing stories from my family. It was a great aunt or something like that, but she was taken from my grandfather, and she was placed in one of the camps, and until somebody liberated them, she was stuck in there for a couple of years. So crazy.
Gosh.
It's crazy.
It's hard to imagine that they would treat people the way they did. Mm-hmm. It was horrible.
Yep.
Especially the Jewish people.
Yeah.
They were terrible to them.
Yeah, that was it. I remember my grandparents telling me stories. They came in and said, "You got 5 minutes, go." And I know my grandmother somehow took a canoe and went to France and came over here, and then same thing with my grandfather. Yeah. And then they took his sister and placed her in a camp for a couple of years.
Gosh.
Jack, you've told your story a couple times, right, to a couple people, and I appreciate you telling us. What's something you've never told, if you don't mind sharing it with us, or if something comes to mind? And if there's nothing, there's nothing. But if something comes to your mind, whether it's a small story, big story, or what's something you've never really talked about a lot, and you don't have to, obviously? Just
there
curious.
Were actually things that didn't have to do with fighting in the Army. Some of the towns that we took, after when we got farther into Germany, across the Rhine River, we'd be fighting, going through small towns and medium-sized cities. A lot of places maybe the size of this Fairport here. And usually the Germans would leave a small defense force there. There'd be one group of old men, veterans of the First World War, and young kids, 16 years old or so. The old men, as soon as we came around the corner, their hands would go up, "Comrade, comrade, we surrender, we surrender." They knew better than to fight. But the young kids were different. They were so steeped in this Hitler dogma. Boy, they were grateful to have the chance to fight, and they did. From the foxholes around the roads going into the town or the city, whatever it was, and they wouldn't give up. And you hated like hell. You could see that they're 14, 16-year-old kids. And hell, that's my kid brother. I can't shoot him. But we had to. That's what we had to do. And it hurt. It really did. It hurt to shoot these young kids. But they wouldn't give up. They were good shots, too. After they shot a couple of our guys, well, I guess we got to treat them like the enemy they are. And we did.
Sure.
It was not terribly hard to do, though. As they say, it's like shooting your kid brother. And it was hard.
Jack, can you touch on the Battle of the Bulge? You hear it. I see the patch on the side of your hat.
Yeah.
It's taught in history lessons. What is the Battle of the Bulge? Something that an average listener might not know, or what exactly what it was about. I guess anyone can get on and Google it, but someone that was there, I guess, how would you explain that to people?
Well, first of all, the reason for the Battle of the Bulge. The Germans were trying to fight their way go through Belgium to the coast to cut off the American supplies. That was the main reason for the Bulge. And the area in Belgium that the Bulge was fought, 90% of the battle was in France, or in Belgium, and a small portion in Luxembourg. But there was very hilly, rough country. But they figured that the Germans fought through it, and they came to when the American army saw what was going on and started moving divisions up ahead of them. We were able to stop them finally, but we were outnumbered almost 10-1. The Germans, there was about 40,000 men there was 3 divisions, I think. One of them hadn't been in battle before, and the other 2 were guys that got the hell beat out of them in the battles that were going on up to there. That was supposed to be a sort of a rest area for them, but it turned out not to be. And the weather turned bad. It got down to below 0, snow. We still had our fall equipment. Lost a lot of guys that froze their feet, especially. A lot of guys got frozen feet.
Isn't that incredible? The United States Army was not well equipped.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, see, at that time, they thought the war was going to be over before winter. So they stopped shipping in clothing and stuff like that for the soldiers and just shipping in more ammunition and fighting stuff. And that's why the winter equipment never got to the troops. We got it eventually, but we were already, half the guys were frozen.
After the Bulge, where did your life take after the Bulge?
We continued then through the, we crossed the Moselle River, had a small battle there, not too much, but it was a pretty good fight. And we took the city. It's a huge city. I can't even think of the name of it now. We had a big battle there, and then come to the Rhine River, and there we did have a fight. We were in the German homeland now, and the places, it was like picture postcard country. The castle on top of the hill, all that, and these beautiful big houses and homes all along there. But the worst battle was crossing the Rhine River. We in small boats going across, and the first outfit got almost to the other side when some German shot up a flare. He must have heard something in the river. He shot up a flare, and he saw all these guys coming across the small boats. Then all hell broke loose. But I was supposed to be in the second or third wave, I guess, and the call went up, anybody know how to run these damn boats? Well, I'd been from Schlot, Greece there. I had small boats all my life. So I jumped down in the river and took over one of these, something had happened to 50 or 60 engineers that were supposed to be there to run the boats. They didn't show up or something. So I got in one of the boats. Come on, guys. The guys go piled into the boat, and they crossed the river with the boat, dropped them off on the other side, went back. I made maybe 4 crossings, I guess. And the last time a German shell hit the bow of the boat and split it wide open. So the boat went down like a rock. It was lucky I was going back empty. I just had a couple of guys aboard, so we got through that all right. But then I went back up and joined my infantry company up the line. Didn't know I'd have to be in the Navy for a while.
Jack, what's something, and I could tell with your past interviews, and just sitting here talking to you for the short time that I've known you, you have a pretty good sense of humor.
I try to.
I think that probably comes from, working in the trades, being a blue-collar worker and coming from a big family, right?
Yes, that's part of it.
Yeah. So with that sense of humor, and again, I've touched on the time you, I guess we'll put it lightly and say, ran your mouth to your superior and might have got smacked for it.
Yeah.
So that probably runs right in the line with me, Jack. We're probably not too far different. What's a funny story about the war? When I ask you that, is there any funny story, whether it's with your buddies or with the enemy, or I don't know, something? Does anything come to mind?
Not really.
No.
It's kind of hard to find anything very humorous in what we did. There may have been individual things like, we took a town by the name of Olsnitz, and it's almost to Czechoslovakia, Germany. And the war was kind of slowing down then. And we've been wearing the same uniforms for in most cases, about 4 months, maybe once or so. In the middle, we had a chance to take a bath, and not very often. And we got to the city of Olsnitz, and right in the center of town, there's this big bathhouse that was fairly common in a lot of those cities along there. They had the big bathhouses. So we decided, what the hell? Let's take a bath. And there was maybe about 100 of us, I guess. And there's about 50 older German women that were running this bathhouse. And they weren't shocked at all by 100 naked American soldiers running around the place getting washed. They had big pools. You jump in one pool and get kind of washed up a little bit, and then you climb out of that and go into another pool, and the next room was just nice warm water, and sit there and soak a little bit. But it was funny in hell. All these they're all pretty good sized women too. They're running around, all these naked soldiers running all over the place. But didn't seem to bother them any. We had quite a time there. Then we went on into Czechoslovakia, and we met the Russian army. We were on top of a hill, and here's a Russian army coming in down below us in a Czech village. And I don't know what kind of an outfit they were. They shouldn't have been in that position, but they were. Because they were kind of I was expected to run into another infantry or armored unit. But this was some kind of a support unit because there's women and everything else in with them. And they're going into all the houses, taking everything out of the houses in the German or in the Czech village and loading it on their trucks. And then they saw us on top of the hill. And so they started to come up the hill. Well, we didn't want to have anything to do with them. They were supposedly our allies, but still, we didn't want to have anything to do with them. So our company commander was standing alongside of me, and I had the machine gun there. He says, "Put a few rounds over their head." I said, okay, and I put it at almost a 45-degree angle and fired in the air, 20, 30 rounds up. They thought we were celebrating. So they starting up the hill. So he says, "Drop it down a little bit." So I dropped the gun down and fired just over the top, about 2 feet over their heads. They got the message.
Sure.
They stopped there. We didn't want him, and they're strange out there. Just look at them and tell they're different kinds of people. They're Mongoloids, Chinese, all kinds of. You can tell by talking to them. They're strange people.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that we helped the Russians during World War II. They got their butts whooped.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think people forget that. I've not heard that story. That story I haven't heard out of your mouth.
Yeah.
That's kind of a humorous story. You know, send a message with lead.
Yeah, really, you look back, there wasn't very much that was funny going on.
Yeah.
Some rather strange, but not very funny.
So were you in the Army when we dropped the bombs?
Yes. I was home on leave. We'd taken the German surrender, and we stayed there for perhaps a month in up near the Czech border, and we stayed in Germany. We backed up and back into Germany again. And
what was the next stage at that point?
Well,
Japan?
The idea
Philippines?
was we were supposed to go to Japan. The war there was still going on, and we got shipped back, and we came back on the Queen Elizabeth from Le Havre in France back to New York Harbor. Went down to Fort Benning to recondition, get it all re-equipped and everything. And we went home. They gave us, 30 days leave, I guess it was, to go home. We did, and while I was home, the war ended in Japan. The Japs surrendered, but then we were supposed to report back to Fort Dix, I think it was, and like the 1st of December, whatever it was. I forget what the time of the year was. And I was one of the first guys back. I went back about 2 weeks later, after I was supposed to be, and I was one of the first guys there. Well, the war's over. We're not going back. But we ended up, the guys finally, they were still going to ship us over to Japan, and the guys almost flatly refused to go. Said, "Hell, we just overbeat the Germans. Now you're trying to send us over for the Japanese. The war's already over there." So they sent us all to our discharge centers.
How did you feel when we dropped the bombs?
I felt very happy about it because I knew we were on our way to go there. And they showed us the plans they had. We were supposed to land on the beach about halfway between Tokyo and Yokohama. And they expected 70% casualties on the landing beach. And as we found out later, that was true. We really would have had those losses. The Japanese were ferocious fighters. And it was no fun.
So let's talk after events. You came back home after the war.
Yeah. I was at Fort Dix for a little while. Of all things, when I was a kid, I worked at the Lake Theater over in Charlotte on weekends running the films.
Did you really?
So I knew how to run the big machines and all that. So when I was at Fort Dix, I was in charge of 6 or 7 theaters. And so I had a great time. I had my own Army car and everything. I did quite well. I was there for about 6 months or so before I got discharged.
Was there anybody from like around here that you knew that went to the war that when you came back, you know, kept in touch with them or met up with them?
Oh yeah,
locally?
because the thing is, almost everybody you knew went into the Army, the Navy, Marines, whatever. They were fighting to get in, not to stay out. Everybody wanted to be in the Army.
Sure.
And that's what they did.
So you came back. Did you think about going back to school, or did you go right to work?
I was going to go back to Cornell University. I already had the first year in there. And I couldn't get in until maybe 5 or 6 months before the next classes started at Cornell. So I went to work with my father and my older brother in the plumbing business, in Charlotte, mostly Charlotte and Greece. And after a while, I got so I liked the business. I work with your hands. And we ran mostly a repair type business. So I was in and out of 5 or 6 houses every day. You meeting different kind of people. And quite frankly, made pretty damn good money for the time. And I liked that. I decided to stick to the plumbing business rather than go to Cornell and get a degree in engineering or whatever. And so that's what I did.
What was the name of your plumbing business?
Well, just John Foy Plumbing. Plumbing and heating.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And to what year did that continue on until?
Well, until, let's see, my son-in-law was in the Navy, and he came back, and he wanted to get he thought being in Rochester, he was a photographer, that he'd be able to get a good job working the photography business.
You would think.
Kodak. But he couldn't find anything that he really wanted. So I took him and I said, well, how'd you like to join me? I was working alone then. I said, how'd you like to join me in the plumbing business? He said, you make a good living at it. So he did. He went to work for me, and eventually, about 20 years ago, he took the business over.
Okay. Is it still continued to today?
Still continued. He's ready to quit too. I
Wow.
don't know what he's going to do.
How old is he, Jack?
He's about 60.
He's about 60, so he's getting ready to be done.
Yeah.
So does he have anyone to pass it on to?
No, he really doesn't. I don't know. Probably, there's people who buy the business. So other guys around. So whether he'll sell it, I don't know.
Let me ask you this, kind of a question out of left field. There's one thing you could change in your life, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to do with the war. It doesn't have to do with the Army. It doesn't have to do with your business. Just what comes to mind when I ask you that? What's one thing you would change in life? If you could change anything.
That I would change?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, as I look back, quite frankly, I'm pretty well satisfied with almost everything that I did.
It's nice to be able to say, huh?
Yeah, really, I don't think there's hardly anything I would really change from the woman that I married to the kids. One bad thing, my wife, Rita, we had 4 kids, and she died, though, early. You know, she was in her 50s, I think it was. Just about 1991 or 92, somewhere along in there.
So
that was really a blow.
Yeah, I bet. So, Jack, what's something between now and from when the time God calls you home? What's something you want to do, or what's something you haven't done, or whether it's a place you want to visit, whether it's a book you want to read, whatever.
I've been rather fortunate. I've always, after the war was over, I joined the American Legion and places like that in Shalat. We started the Veterans of the Battle of the Bulge group. They had about 125 guys in it. I'm the only one left. They're all gone. Everyone was 125. They're all gone. And lately, my mind has been traveling on me. I'll start talking about something, and I'll forget where the heck I am. That's what happens with old age. I'm almost 100 years old. And all of my family is gone, or my immediate family, my first family. There were 10 kids, my mother and father. I still have one sister still alive, but outside of that, I'm the only one left.
Does she live locally?
Yeah, over in Greece.
Okay.
Yeah.
How come none of you guys moved to the east side, to Fairport?
Yeah. We stayed on the good side.
Good side, Jack. You remember who's giving you a ride home today, right? So I'd be, I would not do justice if I didn't thank Honor Flight Rochester. I originally reached out to them, and if you guys aren't familiar with that organization, whoever listens to this Copcast, you should really log on and see what they're doing and what they've been doing for years now. Yeah. It's a great, great organization.
Yeah.
They're the ones that originally gave me your name to reach out to, so I appreciate the info for that.
Yeah. I worked with them for years. I went on one of their first trips when they first started giving trips. The idea of Honor Flight is to give the guys a trip down to Washington to see the monuments and that, and the museums and all. And that was, 30 years ago maybe that they started that. I forget when. But it's worked out fine for the guys that didn't have a chance to travel.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
I tell you, as screwed up as Washington, D.C. is, they really did a phenomenal job honoring the veterans and the different theaters of war we've been in and stuff with the memorials. At least I thought they have. That's my personal opinion. I've been down there, and whoever or many people who designed that and were in charge of that did a phenomenal job. And whoever hasn't visited Washington, D.C., obviously our nation's capital, you should take a trip here in the Northeast. It's about a 5-6 hour trip. There's no excuse not to go down and visit some of the things that they present down there.
Yeah, I've been there. My last major trip there was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I got a call from, of all things, a Jewish group. They were having a big convention just on the north side of Washington, D.C., and they wanted me to come in and give a talk on relieving the concentration camps. They had heard of me someplace. And I did. I went down there, and there's something like 40,000 of them, they said, in this huge auditorium in the south end of Washington, D.C. And there's maybe a half a dozen people who were in the concentration camps.
In the audience?
In the audience, yes. And but all the rest of the 40,000 people that were there were all their families were in the camps. So they treated us like kings. There was maybe about 5 or 6 old GIs there. They gave a short talk there and that. And they were very impressed.
Can we just take another 3 to 5 minutes? I just want to, you presented me with a book here you brought with you just to flip through. I just want to flip through a couple things and ask you about it. Do you mind?
Fine.
Okay.
I want to know what it was like meeting President Trump.
That's
right there.
my
I
first
just saw that
Go
picture.
ahead.
I've been looking at it the whole time.
So just for the listeners here, presented me, he carries a book with him, Poppy's Stories, I touched on earlier in the podcast. On page 2, it says, with President Trump at Omaha Beach Cemetery, the celebration of the 75th anniversary of D-Day. on June 6, 2019 in Normandy, France. So what was that like, Jack?
To meet the President of the United States, and he came right up to us. He didn't wave from the audience or from the stage up in front. He came around through the whole, especially the GIs. We were on this big stage in Normandy and on the beach there. There's a huge, at the cemetery, there's a huge stage, I see him. And there were maybe 100 veterans or so that were on the stage, and the rest of the regular civilians and the veterans' families and all that. President Trump came in, and he came around and he spoke to every single veteran. He at least said hello to everyone. As you can see there, he walked on.
It's
the
an
guys
amazing
reaching
photograph.
for him. I've been there many times with different presidents, and they stayed at their seat in the front.
How about that?
Trump was wonderful.
Just flip through here. There's a couple more.
Yeah.
Is this you with your M1 Garand?
Yeah.
The bayonets fixed.
Uh-huh.
It looks like you have a frag grenade on your left shoulder.
Yeah.
How old are you in that photo, you think?
Probably 18, 19. This year, that's President Trump at that thing. He came to talk. He talked with us. It was quite a thing. That was at the same thing on the beach there.
So I just want to read what you have depicted here in the book. It says, President Trump, National Veterans Day Talk, New York City, November 11th, 2019. President Trump called me by name. I stood up and saluted him. He pointed at me and said, quote unquote, "You're looking good, Jack. You're looking good." He talked about my World War II combat service for 4 to 5 minutes. That's some honor.
That was the strangest thing, but the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me, I think. I was at home, the phone rang, and the woman says, "This is Nancy Jones. I'm Secretary to the President of the United States in the White House." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "What else are you selling?" I thought that was a phone, the phony calls you get nowadays. She says, "No, Mr. Foy, it really is. I'm the Secretary to the President. And he asked me to call you. If you have any doubts, hang up the phone and call back on the White House number, and they'll connect you right back up with me." I said, "All right, well, what's on your mind?" She says, "The President wants to invite you to come down to New York City." This was just a few days before Veterans Day. Well, it had to be about 5 or 6 years ago. And he said, I lose my train of thought.
You're doing fine.
Yeah.
She called you, asked you to come down to New York
called
City.
me. He said he wanted me to come down. He says, we're going to include you in his talk in New York City, and he would like you to be there. So I said, well, I don't want to come alone. I was 90, 92, 95 years old, well, 95 then. And he said, "No, your son can come with you." So my son came along with me, and we flew down to New York City. And we got into down right at the tip of Manhattan. There's a big park, Madison Square Park. It's right near Madison Square Garden. And they had guards all over the place, and they escorted us. When I identified myself, they escorted us in, sat me down right in the front row. Eric Trump was on one side of me. Lara Trump was on the other side of me. The whole Trump family was all around. And a little while later, the president came in, and he talked about there was a couple veteran of Legion of Honor men that were there in the audience. And he recognized them and so forth. Then he got to the important part of the program, my story. And he talked about me. It's the story right in there for probably about 5 or 6 minutes. To be talked about by the President of the United States for 5 or 6 minutes to going across the world. My head got that big. I had a hard time getting in the car when I get back home. But it was such an honor.
Sure.
That was aboard the Queen Mary. I was aboard that on the way, taking a trip.
A little bit different seats that time, huh?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is unbelievable, Jack. It really, truly is. My life wouldn't even have a chapter in your book. It really, truly wouldn't, and you have a whole book of it.
Yeah,
I
was very fortunate. I got associated with some real good guys that run tours of Europe, and I've been over at least a dozen times over to France, Belgium, Germany. Over the other way to Hawaii a couple of times.
You said you're going back soon? Or?
My family there. My brother, he's a priest.
Your brother's a priest?
Yeah.
Which diocese was he in?
Right here.
He was?
Yeah, he was. He's gone now.
Okay.
He was here. He was in East Rochester.
What was his name?
Foy. Edward Foy.
Edward?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in East Rochester for a while. Then most of the rest of the time he's down the southern tier. He says he likes it down there. It's a long ways from Buffalo Road. That was that boat down the...
I see that. Do you know what kind of boat that is?
It was oh gosh, I do know, but I can't think of the name of it now.
Is that an old Penn Yan boat?
No, it's not a Penn Yan. No? It's down. I had that down in the river. A friend of mine, Bud Keenan, and I had it together. Go all over the lake, over to Toronto, up to Thousand Islands.
Yeah. Did you say Keenan?
Yeah.
Is he from Fairport?
I think there is part of the family that's out
At least
there.
you smartened up and had friends in Fairport.
Yeah.
Right? Keenan Funeral Homes,
yeah.
right? One's right behind us.
Yeah, here's the name. The driver isn't here. This guy here, oh, darn it. He's from around this area. Pete Dupre.
Dupre.
He gave a lot of talks and stuff like that. And here again, we both started crying. We're standing at the, this is at the big monument in Washington, D.C., the big World War II. The Battle of the Bulge monument is right here. And both of us started crying. I was pushing him in his wheelchair.
So this is what I wanted to touch on, and I forgot about this. I should have mentioned this earlier. You were at Jolly Valley, right? You were a volunteer fireman.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So after you served in the Greatest Generation, or part of the Greatest Generation, and served in the Great War, you came back to Rochester and continued to serve.
Right. Yeah.
You've had a life of service.
Belonged to the Lakeshore Fire Department. Belonged to that for years.
I knew that. Your son, when I talked to your son, he told me that.
They gave me a big award there. I won that for saving a house on Windsor Road. I had my truck, and I had a fire radio in my truck. That's why I answered most of the fire alarms. And pulled up in front of the house, and the guy come out yelling, "The gas leaking in the cellar." I opened the door, and sure enough, it was strong gas. I ran downstairs and turned. I told the other guys over there, I said, start smashing the cellar windows out. Let some air in. And they did. We went around smashing the cellar windows of the place out. And I ran inside. But I took a wrench off my truck, went down and turned the gas line off in the cellar. Ran back outside again. And they gave me a big award for it.
Sounds like plumbing to me.
Yeah, that's it.
I
didn't send them a bill for it either. I should have.
Well, Jack, I won't take up more of your time. And I know people say thank you. I cannot say thank you sincerely enough to you. I mean it for the man you are, for the man you've been, what you've done for me, for our country, for this state, for Rochester, for everyone. Yeah. I mean that sincerely. I cannot thank you enough. I hope you feel the sincerity in my voice, because I can't say it enough. Thank you from all of us for being you and and everything you've done for us, and especially coming on the podcast and obviously digging into your memory bank and sharing with us.
I've been fortunate, and over the years, I think I've talked to every high school in Monroe County at least once, and a few grammar schools too, and other groups. But it's something I get a great deal of satisfaction from.
Yeah. I'll offer this to you. Obviously, I can't pay you for your time, right? We're not a business, but Sergeant Weber will buy you lunch.
Okay,
that's a deal.
That's a good deal.
So if you'd like, we can go to one of the local establishments,
Fine.
and we'll get a bite to eat after this. How about that?
Good. Can't argue about that.
Okay. So again, let me just, in closing, Sergeant Weber, I'll leave it for you for a couple seconds if you have anything for Jack.
No, I just think it's just incredible you being here, and I think almost every day you should be on a podcast or saying something, because it's just, you could sit here for hours and just go and just listen, and you're a wealth of knowledge for it, and I just think everybody should have you on something and just keep talking, truly.
Yeah, and like Sergeant Weber said, it is, you should do it every day, and because it's important. It's important to remember history.
I was on WHAM here about a month ago, the broadcast they have, and I've been on dozens of radio, television broadcasts and all that. But the problem is now I'm almost 100 years old. In my mind, I start talking about something, and my mind wanders off, and I forget where the heck I am.
You did great. You did absolutely wonderful. Well, let me ask you with a hard question before we leave. Out of all the speeches and all the people that you've met and all the radio shows and TV shows and podcasts you've been on, I before we started taping live, you were telling me that this is your favorite one, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Exactly.
Of course.
But, Jack, again, we'll sign off with that. Thank you very much to Bill Moran and the Billified podcast. So cannot do this without you. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to interview people like Jack and have people, in the Fairport community and the Rochester community as a whole to listen to your stories. I think it's very important. Again, thank you very much. And, the Fairport Police Copcast is officially in the books, Jack.
All right, thank you very much for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
You bet. Our pleasure. Bill, thank you very much.
Thank you.